Hakadosh Boker Tov Shavua Tov. This question in Rabbi Nimo Betovot. Daf Masechet Gittin Daf Yudbet Amud Aleph 1281. We're going to start just from 11b on the bottom, where I'm going to say it outside, so just everyone understands. Rav Chasta came and he said that if somebody is going to grab for a bal chov in a place where it's going to be negative for other people, so that's going to be the machlok between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbanan. As we learned in the Mishnah, somebody that took peah, and he says that this is the peah is the corner of the field, and he said that this is going to be for this poor person. Rabbi Eliezer said he's going to be zochet to him. The Chachamim say no, it's going to be to the first poor person that's going to come. Says Miman, and some people say it's Rav Papa. This is now 12a. Dil malohi, maybe it's not like that. When did Rabbi Eliezer say it over there? You remember that he could have made all his properties into ifker, ownerless, and then he's going to become an ani. If he's an ani himself, he could be zochen the peah of himself. So since he could be zochet to himself, he could be zochet to his friend who's also an ani. But in our case, right, law, you can't do that. Which means in our case, imagine right now, you remember the case last time we said that imagine somebody gave me money to pay back Richard. I took the money and they paid back Baba Haki. Hey, what's going on? Richard's losing out. Yeah, but I give it to Baba Haki. He also owed Baba Haki money. So therefore, that's going to be a case where he's going to be tofes lebalchov bimkom shechav laacherim. He's grabbing for a balchov. Baba Haki was also owed money, but it's going to be chav laacherim. It's going to be negative to other people. It was going to be negative to Richard that he lost out on his. So says the Gemara. When did the rabbis say over there? Ela dichtiv was it's written lo telaket la'ani, lo telaket lo la'ani, meaning an ashid should not grab for the ani. Aval hacha, but by here, the rabbis did not say that you cannot grab for an ani, for another person. So therefore, there's actually going to be no problem. So you can't say that. Okay, fine. You'd bet Amud Aleph on the two dots. Okay. Rabbi Eliezer, hi lo telaket. What does he do with lo telaket? You have to warn on ani on his own field. That even on his own field, right? Even he's allowed to come and take peah from other people's fields. He's not allowed to take his own peah from his own field. If he had a small little tiny field, he would also have to leave it over. Okay, fine. So now we're in the two dots. Everyone has it? Two dots on the top of Yud Bet Amud Aleph. We are 2, 4, 6, 8 lines down where it says She'im Yirtzeh Shelo Lazum. You remember we said that according to everybody, when you're going to free a slave, and you're going to give him his emancipation letter, right? His liberation letter. According to everybody, it's a zechut for him. And it's not a chovah for him. But for a get, it is a chovah for her, right? So why? Because if you remember, we said that a man could say that he doesn't want to feed his slave. He cannot say that to his wife, but he could say that to his slave. So because he could say, I don't want to feed my slave, so therefore, the fact that he's freeing it's always going to be good. Because you're not gaining anything. That means the slave could never come and say, you know what? No. I would have preferred to be a slave. Why? Because if he's going to say I would have preferred to be a slave, the master could say, okay, fine, but I'm not feeding you. And now what happens? Nothing. Right? He's not obligated to feed him. Okay? Shemat mina, we learn from here. Yachol harav lomar la'eved. The master could tell the slave, there's an eved kanani, aseh imi. We learn from here that a master could tell his slave, do for me work, and I'm not going to give you parnasa. I'm not going to give you to eat. You're going to work for me. I'm not going to give you to eat. So you see from here, this is what we actually learn from this Mishnah. Because the Mishnah said that it's always going to be something good for the slave when we free him. Because the slave can't just say, I want to be with him. Why? He's got nothing to gain. He only has what to lose. So the second you give him his freedom, that's the biggest gain, right, in the world. So the Gemara says, what we're dealing with the Elmaleh that he says, it's not true. Really, be'emet, a person cannot come and just say to a slave, you have to work for me, but you get nothing in return. No. But what he could say is, fine, go work, but you make from your work, you have to pay your own food. But you have to work extra, and you're going to work on another. So the Gemara says, right? He says over here, right? You have what we're dealing with. Yeah, fine. Yeah, it says over here like this. Just like by a woman. Just like a woman, you could tell your wife, listen, you know what? You go and work, and whatever you work, you're going to feed yourself. So why is it that the husband, right, cannot say that? Why does the Mishnah say that a husband cannot stop his wife or from giving her to eat?
Part of the kasuba, probably.
Right, he says it. So answers the Gemara, which means that what happens if it's not enough? Meaning, let's say the woman goes to work, but she doesn't have enough money, what she's making. Remember, she's making less money than men, right? So therefore, yes, it comes from here. Yes.
The fruit of her hands.
Yes.
Is for the husband, but if she wants more, no, that's it.
No, well, that's a little bit different because there we're talking about the fruits. Fruits are different. Here, they're talking about that she's working and she's paying for her food with her work. But since it's not enough money, so therefore he has to supplement whatever is lacking. That's what it says here. Isha bedelo sapka, that it's not enough. So it says Abi Evan Amin lo sapik. 1 second, maybe it's not enough also for the Evan, right? Maybe it's also not enough. Answers the Gemara, Abde de nehom krise lo shavya. An eved that his work is not shaveh, the mechid of his bread, so then why do they need him exactly? Right? Which means there's no toilet. Meaning, if you're going to tell me that he's working all day and he's not making the amount of money what he needs to eat his own food,
what good is he?
What good is he? Imagine, think about it. You know what that is? By the way, you should know. Hashema, we're going to have another writer that says, Eved shegala le'are miklat. When you have an Eved, right, a slave, that he was exiled to an miklat, en rabo chayav luzuno. So the master is not obligated to come to give him parnasa. Velo, and only that, Masechet Gittin, whatever he works in the miklat goes to the rabbi, goes to his master. Shemamina, we learn from here. So the master could tell the slave, you have to work for me, but I'm not going to give you money. Answers the Gemara the exact same thing. That the master told him, so says the Gemara, so then why does his whatever he makes goes to his master? Answers the Gemara, la whatever's extra. Meaning, let's say one more time, the Eved came and he killed accidentally. Since he's an Eved Kenani, but he's now like a Jew in that form, he's not killed. He goes to Galut. So he goes to Galut. Now you're not going to tell the master go to exile with your slave. Understand? The slave has to go after the master, not the master of the slave. But now the master can't tell the slave, listen, you have to stay here because if they're going to kill him, he has to save for his life. So he runs to the miklat. Now when he's in the miklat, right, the master doesn't have to give him to eat, but the master could tell him, you work and you whatever you make of money, that's what you're going to feed yourself. No. זה רב ותלמיד, not רב ועבד.
לא, נכון, גם רבו.
So he says over here like this, Tashema, so we just learned, an Eved that goes to Galut, to Are Miklat, the rabbi is not obligated to give him Parnasah, none of them Masechet goes to the master. Shema, we learn from here that the master could tell the slave, you have to work for me and I'm not going to give you food. So the Gemara says, no, we're talking about where he says, so if so, what does it go to the master? He needs the first food. Answers the Gemara, whatever's left over. So says the Gemara, obviously, if he made extra money, obviously he goes to the master. So it says, I would have thought to say, right, let lay, lo yaivle. If right now, if the Eved did not have parnasah, the master doesn't give it to him, so so when he does get it and he has extra, the master does not take it. Kamashmalan comes teach you that the master still takes the extra. So says the Gemara, so why do we only speak about the case of a miklat? So says the Gemara, I would have thought to say, right, avi lechiyut atfei. When it says that he's going to live, I would have thought you have to actually give him more parnasah, right? Why? Because maybe certain days he's not going to get parnasah. Kamashmalan comes teach you that no, which means it is something incredible. In the olden days, right, they used to work day by day. It wasn't like nowadays they used to work, you get a yearly salary. So therefore, today, let's say he worked and he made extra money. So that extra money goes to the master. Let's say tomorrow comes and he doesn't make anything.
He starves. He has
to beg. Why? Because the master doesn't have to give him anything. Meaning, I would have thought to say that, listen, the slave could say, listen, today I made extra, but I'm going to save it up for tomorrow because I don't know if tomorrow I'm going to make anything.
You're not allowed.
You're not allowed. No, that extra goes to the rabbi, goes to his master. I say the Rabbo. Rabbo means his master, right? But in the Seifa it says, but the wife, that she goes to the miklat, her husband's obligated in mizonotea. Miklal, so it comes out, Delo Amarla, he didn't tell her, he didn't tell her, go work, and whenever you work, goes through your parnasah. As if the husband said it, why is he going to be chayav? Only the Seifa, so 1 second. So if in the Seifa, Delo Amarla, he didn't say it, Reisha Nami Delo Amarla. Maybe in the Reisha also he didn't say it, and still we said that he's not obligated to give her, right, the parnasah. Right? So he says, Leolam, really be'emet, Amarle, really be'emet, he did tell the right? He did tell to his wife, right? Veisha bedelo sapka, but she didn't make enough money. Which means if the wife did not make enough money, he still has to come and support her. The Hamidiktani Seifa, that which we learned in the Seifa, Ve'im Amar life, he told her, right, that you're going to come and you're going to take out your work for your parnasar, rashai, you're going to be permitted to. He didn't say that. So this is what it means to say. If he already had enough, and she said, he's allowed to do that. What do you mean, obviously? Obviously, if it's enough money for her, that's it. So I would have thought to say, what does that mean? Right? That it's at the end of the day, she should be tznuan, she shouldn't go out. Right? Kamashmalan comes teach you the braita that still the husband is not going to be chayav in the parnasah of his wife, right? And therefore, right, as long as she's making her own money, that's already going to be enough. So says the Gemara, why don't we just say it's a machlok tanaim? Says, so a master could, as a slave could tell his master during the time of a famine, or you're going to give me parnasa, or you let me free. Chachamim say, no, the master could do whatever he wants. Right? That means the master could hold him and say, I'm not giving you to eat. Isn't that the machloket? The more savar, that one of them says yachol, or more savar and yachol, that means basically, why don't we just say that the machloket between Rashbag and Chachamim is, are you obligated to give your slave to eat or not? Because one of them says that the slave could come to his master and say, it's either you let me free or you give me parnasa. And the
you give me food.
Yeah, well, or you give me parnasa. Parnasa means to eat, right? Or you let me free, or you give me parnasa, you give me to eat. Or the other one is going to say, no, the master could say, I'm keeping you and you're just not eating. So says the Gemara, do you really think that's logical? What does it mean now? Give me parnasa or take me out free. He should have said, oh, you give me parnasa or let me work. And whatever I work, that goes for my parnasa. Furthermore, what are we talking about during the time of famine? So says the Gemara, what are we dealing with? That he told him, go work for your parnasa, but it's not enough during the time of famine. Rashbag holds, or you're going to give me to eat, or you're going to liberate me. Why? Because that way people should see me, and then they're going to have mercy on me. They'll give me to eat. But Rabbanan Sabre and the rabbis hold, whoever is going to have mercy on a bnei chorin, on a regular person, will also have mercy on a slave as well. Meaning at the end of the day, they're also going to have mercy on him. Okay, so he cannot come and start demanding his freedom. So Tashema, we're going to try to bring in a braita. The Amar Rav says, Hamagdish yedei abdo. If somebody's going to be magdish, the hands of his slave, which means that he says that everything that the slave does is shayach to hegdesh. Hegdesh means it's consecrated towards the Bet HaMikdash. Oto ha'eved loveh ve'ochel ve'oseh uporea. So that slave, he's going to borrow money and he's going to eat. And then he's going to do work and he's going to pay it back. Shema mina, we learn from here. So it comes out that the slave, the master could tell the slave, you have to work for me and I'm not going to give you to eat. So it says, what are we dealing with over there? No, you are giving him to eat. And therefore, since you're giving him to eat, that's why he could be magdish there. But if you're not giving him mizonot, be'emet, he cannot obligate the slave to come and to start working for him for free. So it says, so, lemai. So then for what? Right, you bet 12b. Lemai lo ve'ochel. Why does he have to borrow money and eat them? If the master is giving him to eat, why does he have to borrow money to eat? So answers the Gemara, la dafa. Right, we're talking about extra, which means the master was giving him exact amount of food, and he wanted to eat a little bit more. So therefore, he had to borrow money to eat a little bit more. Okay? Elmaleh legdesh adhashta sagilach velo adafa ve'ashtam tiskelach velo adafa. So he says, 1 second, why doesn't the Egdesh tell the slave, until now, right, you had enough food that your master was giving you, even without extra, and now you're going to have enough mizonot even without having anything extra? Which means, why is the Eved allowed to borrow money, right, on Cheshbon Egdesh? He's borrowing money on the account of Egdesh. So answers the Gemara, Egdesh gufa nichale. It's better for the Egdesh, in order that he should become fatter and bigger, right, and therefore he gets more. Meaning that when you have a slave, which he's going to be bigger in it, he's going to work more. He's going to be able to do more. So if it's better for him, right, which that in itself, by the way, fine. The 2 dots, when we're talking, not the 2 dots, but it's the Gemara, where the Gemara says, Oseu Porea. So he says, if you're going to consecrate right, the hands of your slave. So therefore, he's going to borrow, work, and pay back. So says the Gemara, Kama Kadisha. He says, 1 second, the first pruta that comes to him is already Hekdesh, and every single pruta that comes afterwards. So how could it be then that he could actually pay back the money if that money belongs to Hekdesh already? Meaning it's like the IRS. So the second the money comes in, it already belongs to them. So how does that work? So he says, no, it's less than Sheva Pruta. It's also logical. The Amar Rav, as Rav says, right? When you're going to consecrate the hands of your slave, that slave is going to come and he's going to do and he's going to eat. Because if right now he did not work, who's going to work? Who's going to come and who's going to come, working and give him parnasah? If you're going to tell me now it's the first one that the master said, that the master went and he told that the slave went and he borrowed and then he worked. And we're talking about that he gave him mezonot, enu yachol. So then he can't tell the slave, right? Obviously, he's not giving him parnasah, he's not giving him food. So then shapir, so then it's good then. Right? Why? There's no stira, because whatever the slave is making is not shayach to the master. He has to use it for his own food. So if the master cannot give parnasah to the slave, right? So therefore it makes sense. But if you're going to tell me that the master is not giving him parnasah, and he could come and tell the slave, you have to work for me and I'm not giving you parnasah, that if that eved is not going to work, so he's going to work for, right? Who's going to want such a slave, right? Because if the master could come and force the slave to work for free under him, so who's going to take him as a job, knowing that the master could take him whenever he wants, and then that's it. So it comes out that he cannot say that. That's what we actually learn. So basically, we learn from Rav that he holds that you cannot tell your slave you have to work for me and I don't give you to eat. It doesn't exist. Tashema. We're going to bring another proof. Rabbi Yochanan says, if somebody cuts off his hand's friend, right, is his friend's hand, sorry, right? Noten shifto v'refuato l'rabo.
Friend's slave's hand.
Yes, the slave, right? But right, so what happens? He has to right now give the shevet and the refuah to his master. Shevet is that he's unemployment, that he's not able
lost
to
earnings.
Lost earnings. So he has to give that to the master, right? Ve'oto ha'eved, and that slave, nizon minat tzedakah. He's going to be fed from the tzedakah. Shema mina, we learn from here. So the master could tell the eved, asemi v'nezanecha. What does that mean? You have to work for me and you're not going to, right? He could actually say this. So what are we dealing with? No, malelo mezonot. He's giving him to eat. So if so, if he's giving him to eat, so then why does he eat from the tzedakah? So answers the Gemara, the extra he's taking from tzedakah. So if so, nizon. What does it mean nizon minat tzedakah? Mitparnes mi baile. He's getting the extra from the tzedakah, not the actual mizonot. Mizonot is coming from his master. The extra to supplement, to write the extra, that's going to come from the tzedakah. But we learn from here, that according to this, you are allowed to come and tell your slave, work for me and not give you anything. Okay? So basically, again, we keep on going back and forth. Are you allowed to, not allowed to? We said that Rav said you're not allowed to. Here we just proved that you are allowed to according to Rabbi Yochanan. Amar More says, let's go into Rabbi Yochanan again. So you're going to give your lost earnings, right, and the refuah to his master. Shifto, pshita, obviously lost earnings, it makes sense. Who's he working for? The master. So who's losing out? The master. Right? But refuato, it's sichale, but the chidush is for the refuah. Right? Refuato, the day he goes to him to buy his stream. Does it make sense? You're going to give the money of the refuah to the master? Who has to get cured? The master or the slave? The slave. So the slave needs that money to go to the doctor. So how do you give that money now to the master? So it says, Gemara, what are you talking about? What happened is that they went and they said that really Be'emet, he was going to be cured in 5 days. And now the master went and he needs a potion which is much more strong and he was cured in 3 days. So Ma'odatem, I would have thought to say Tzara Didehu, that he suffered more, that he had to drink it in 3 days and become cured in 3 days. Kamash Malan comes teach you that the master gets the extra 2 days. Yeah? It's incredible, no? They added on extra. Yeah. So Tanya, we learned in the bright time. Rabbi Lazar says, we told me, is it the zechut that for a slave that he's going to go out of his master? He told us chovulo. It's a chov. Shemiyav Kohen posel mina truma is what Richard said before. At the end of the day, if he was a Kohen, now he can't eat truma anymore. So it's not it's a chova. Amarnu lo, but we told them. 1 second. he could just tell a slave, I'm not going to give you to eat anymore. Rashai, he's allowed to do so. Amar lanu, so he told us, he says, 1 second, what about an Eved Kohen that he runs away? Or an Eshet Kohen, that she went against her husband and she ran away without getting divorced. She's still allowed to eat Truma, right? But the Eved is not allowed to eat Truma anymore, right? But the second that he's out of the Reshut of the Kohen, he's already Meshuchrad, he's already freed. So then he doesn't eat Truma anymore. But a wife of a Kohen, as long as she doesn't rebel against her husband, if she runs away from her husband, she's still allowed to eat Truma. Aval Isha Chovula. For a woman, it's always going to be considered something negative. Shekem Pasla Mina Truma, because it's going to make her lose Truma. And it's going to make her lose mizonot. Right? Because at the end of the day, as long as she's married, she always gets food from the husband. He's never allowed to say, I'm not going to give you to eat. Maika Amrile, right? Umaika Mahadale. So what was the machloke between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Lazar and Chachamim and Rabbi Meir? So Haki Kamalu, this is what they told him. Rabbi Meir told them, Ishavtuni ala mezonot. You answer me on the mezonot. Machuvani ala truma. What are you going to answer me on truma? Now if you're going to tell me he could throw her the get and disqualify her, he says Shavik levarik vazil. The Eved could run away, right? And then that's it. And then he's going to stop his master from freeing him, right? And he could continue eating truma. So it comes out that only the zechiyat of the shliach is going to cause him to lose it. And therefore, that's why there's a chovah for him. Uma ilu Eved kohen shabarach. You give him the from the top. Just like an Eved Kohen that he runs away, and Eshet Kohen Shemarda Bala, they're going to eat Truma, right? What? He's not going to eat? Shapi Kamelo. He's actually saying something good. So Amar Rava says, that's what they answered in the Mishnah. Because he's acquired to him, he could just take 4 zuz, which is pennies from another Jew, and he could, meaning like this. Imagine right now, I had an Eved, and I'm a Kohen. The Eved ran away. He outsmarted me. Why? Because now he continues eating Truma, and I can't do anything. That's not true. You know why? All I need to do is I tell Richard, you want to buy my slave? Give me 4 pennies. Right? Give me 4 zuz, or even $4. Give me $4. Yep. Okay, he gives me $4.
That's it.
The second that he acquires it, that's it. Now he's not allowed to eat Truma anymore. I didn't have to free him because I couldn't have freed him anyway. He ran away. All I had to do is I sold them to Richard, the Gemara, that's it. And now he's going to be disqualified from eating the Truma. Or Rabbi Meir, but according to Rabbi Meir, Teinach be'Eved Kohen, you're right. Eved Kohen, you could do that. Eved Yisrael, what are you going to do then? What's the purpose by an Eved Yisrael that you're going to do such a thing? Eved Kohen makes sense, because right now I just did that trick, and now I just prohibited him in eating Truma.
Rabbi, why are they talking about an agent here?
Because you remember that we said that if you give an agent the get, the emancipation letter, we said that for an Eved, it's always considered a zechut. Exactly, it's a zechut. It's a merit. When we ask why is it a merit, the second you give him the emancipation letter, you just disqualified him from eating truma. So it's not a merit; it's a chovah. It's something
I always said, but it didn't say that.
So that's what we just said. It's not a chovah. Why? Because even without that emancipation letter, you could sell the slave for 2 cents. You got rid of him.
Okay.
So he says, and according to Rabbi Meir, that's good by an Eved Kohen, but Eved Yisrael, what are you going to say? You know what? You're making him lose. When he was an Eved Kenani, you could get him married to a Shivcha Kenanit, right? And therefore, so he could get married to a Shivcha. Says the Gemara, Adrabah, the opposite. When you free him, now you can get married to any Jew, to any Jewish woman. Beforehand, he could only get married to a slave woman. Now he could get married to any free woman. Says the Gemara, an Eved always wants to be hefker. Zilale,
oh, that's right. I remember
what does that mean? He wants to fool around. He wants why? He's not a busha. He wants to do pritzut. He wants to be promiscuous. He wants to be the shivcha kenanit is always for him. The second he gets freed, he has to start going for a jap, right? For some Jewish American princess, she's gonna make a mincemeat out of him. You understand? He can't do whatever he wants with her, right? So therefore, so he prefers to be with a shivcha kenanit. And that's why it's considered a chov.
That's right. That's right. This